Check, check, mic check. All right, if you are watching waiting in the lobby, we'll be starting here shortly, I'm sure. If the sprint race can be delayed, what's a small hiccup for round 3 of SRL here? All right, as we get into qualifying, welcome to round 3 of season 9 of SRL. My name is Bryan Kessler here with you for a qualifying session and then a 50% full race in Losail, Qatar. Last week, a bit of drama. It was Simone Mara over the line first, but some penalties removed from the SRL stewards for Jenson Randall breaking the streak Simone Mara had, and we'll have a definitive break of the streak today as Simone Mara not in the lobby, not able to get to the starting line in time. So we'll either have Jenson Randall, returning champion, continue to dominate, or strong performances recently from the likes of Alexei Koivuniemi, Logan Oren, last year's champion, Sandro Dulis up there in the points, and Jamie Jägerstrom, a very strong outing last time. Perhaps not the favorite circuit in F1. All of the drivers today, not a huge fan, but there should be some good racing today. We'll expect, I would say, our top runners somewhere in the perhaps 119, 120 range as qualifying goes on. There are two notable qualifying bands here that we'll be keeping track of. It's Nick Van Gelder, Vincenzo Torre. We'll go to Logan Oren out in front. So Qatar here, as Logan comes around turn 3. Turns 4 and 5 here. 5, you can get a slight lift and quality trim. Around to the hairpin of turn 6. Slightly downhill, easy to overshoot. Gonna want to watch track limits there. Logan doing nicely on his warm-up lap. Around into 7. Full throttle here, turns 8 and 9. Turn 10, perhaps some overtaking opportunities here during the race. Not too many in Qatar. And then technically turn 11 here, and it's going to be full throttle 12, 13, and 14 coming up in qualifying trim. See there, look, keeping it in 7th gear. Right here, a slight lift maybe. And then this is where drivers can be aggressive. It's turn 15. And then the last turn of Losail, turn 16 here, the right-hander. Certainly some tires to be worried about in this race, not just in F1 23, but in the actual race weekend. Some tire concerns with the Pirellis. But Oren, on his first lap, going to be the banker. Coming around here into turn 4 and 5. A little bit of traffic ahead of him, but I assume they're going to be going fast enough and won't be a concern. Turn 6 there, that's where I always lose time. Good exit, full width of the track for Logan. And he'll come around 8 and 9. Full throttle there. Does have a Mercedes in front. Might get a little dirty air. But here we go. Going to be all out on these 3 turns. And perhaps a slight lift here. Really maximizing track limits. I feel in this game the track limit's pretty forgiving for Qatar. Logan going across the line, the first lap on the board. And it's a nice one, a 129. Meanwhile, Jamie Jägerstrom looks like a 124, but invalidated. Meanwhile, reserve driver Luke Smith, the Australian, certainly off the track there. Sandro Dulis coming around purple sector 1. So this is a good time to check in with another driver. And Dulis has had quite the season so far. P4 in the standings. A good outing last week at the Australian GP. Going to finish Sector 2, a purple Sector 2. So strong driving and perhaps some track evolution. There's going to be a lot of rubber on the road here. Goes slightly wide, and that's going to be invalidated. So that's the unfortunate part. As I said, you can be aggressive there on turns 12, 13, and 14. 14, sometimes you need perhaps a slight lift or maybe a downshift. Easy to overshoot. Tim Ventink, you see there the intermediates getting the setup locked in. Dion Stahl doing the same. Jensen Randall going to finish his lap here. Although being at the 120 range already, I think not exactly a lap he's looking to bank for a time. Showing the very colorful parts of Qatar just off track. But Ivan Brito on the softs. Behind the McLaren of Freya Belay. Senna going to come across the line. That should put him maybe P3 or so. Yes, indeed. 123.6 for Senna Hervire. Freya Belay now going to be starting his first qualifying lap of the session. Ethiopian driver, some hard luck the last couple of rounds. Seemed destined for maybe a P2, even P3 finish in round one. Caught in an early incident last week in Australia. Never fully recovered. Last year's Rookie of the Year. Purple Sector 1. Perhaps not the most optimal exit there out of turn 6, but always plenty of time to make up, depending on how aggressive he'd like to be. Plenty of time in qualifying. Might just want to get one time in and then choose to be aggressive on a later one. Purple Sector 2. Sandro Dulis in a similar situation earlier before invalidating about right here. Keeps it within track limits, does Belay. Should be a good lap here coming into turn 16. It's going to be close to Logan Oren's. And it's a 1:21.4. So P2 for Freya Belay. Meanwhile, we go to Alexei, the Finnish driver. Purple Sector 1. Track really improving here. So Alexei Koivuniemi, the winner of Australia last year. Strong outing in Australia last week. Finds himself P2 in the driver's standings. Behind only Simone Mara, so only ground to make up here for Alexei. Jensen Randall, of course, with the win and fastest lap last week, just behind him in the standings as well. Purple Sector 2. And it appears to be the sort of qualifying session where it's going to be the last one to start a lap. It's going to have the distinct advantage. Koivuniemi coming over the line. I suspect finding himself, yes, where he normally does, just a 10th behind Logan Oren. Jensen Randall again. An invalidation. Not sure where it happened. But that's two laps now with the soft Pirellis that he's not been able to bank a time. And we'll go to the young driver, Jamie Jägerstrom. Doesn't have a time on the board yet. Fantastic race last week. Lots of contact in Australia. Undone a bit by that. But he comes around. Going to complete Sector 1. 26.7 for Sector 1. In around turn 7. Good on board here as we go into 8 and 9. See that flat out around 9. It's a turn 11, a very technical turn 11 there as you can see. And then flat out here at 12. Get back outside. Eat as much code as you can. Keeps it in 7th the whole time. Downshift there. Well done. No time on the board, no reason to be too aggressive. And then maybe a bit of a moment there, keeps it on track. And in the Williams, it's going to be Jamie Jägerstrom, P4. All right, not a lot of action on the timing table yet. Go to the Portuguese driver, Ivan Brito, yet to put a time up. And Sandro Dulis, yet to put a time up. Everyone else you see in the pit, Nick Van Gelder there you see, has not left the pit. Qualifying ban for him. Same for Vincenzo Torre. So work to do for them. And now we'll see the Portuguese driver start his qualifying lap. Does have the Ferrari in front of him. Should be far enough ahead to not affect his time too much. This is a circuit where downforce is important in so many of these high-speed corners. So I believe the last qualifying lap we were watching, we saw Jamie Jägerstrom get through Sector 1. I want to say at a 26.7. Ivan Brito, 27 flat. Of course, for now, just important. Get a time on the board. Should have time for another one. Here we are. This is where a lot of drivers have exceeded track limits, had some invalidations here. 12, 13 now, and then 14, the big one. And then we'll check the aggression on 15 here. Slight downshift. Well done. Brito will come around. He'll have a time on the board at least. Put him no worse than P10. Of course, I think Dion Stahl and Tim Ventink, those times were on the intermediates. Expect them to improve in the Portuguese driver up to P5. And we'll go to the Alpine of Tim Ventink. So a couple tenths slower than the lap we just saw from Ivan Brito. I believe it's going to be Ventink's first lap on the softs. We saw him earlier with the intermediates, making sure the car felt all right. Purple sector 2, saving a ton of time on that sector. 4 seconds faster than his intermediate lap. So this should be interesting. Down a couple tenths compared to Ivan Brito on Sector 1. Meanwhile, Jensen Randall, top of the leaderboard, Tim Benting going to be P10. Couldn't quite find all the time against Ivan Brito. 122.7 for him. Dion Stahl also putting in the lap on the softs, getting a 122.5, putting him P8. Go to the AlphaTauri of Senna Hervire. On the outlap. Looking to improve on the time. Robin Hertstadhagen there, the other McLaren, also, I expect, going to be coming out again. See a lot of drivers in the pit lane, waiting until the right time, want to be the last one to cross the finish line. Oh, and it's going to be an invalidation for Senna. That's too bad. I guess that was outlap, but sometimes it's close enough that you almost wonder if it's going to invalidate the next one. Looks like it won't. Or has it? The minimap's still red for Senna here. At least get a good sense of the pace. He goes off track there, so certainly an invalidation now. Looks like Alexei Koivuniemi coming back out. $121.0 for Koivuniemi earlier. A tenth behind Logan Orend, and Jensen Randall's 126, just far and away the fastest lap we've seen here. See these drivers benefiting from Simone Amar not being able to get in at the start on time. So the battles from last week, I expect, will still be there. Jensen Randall, Logan Orn, Alexei Koivuniemi, Jamie Jägerstrom, Sandro Dulis, and hopefully not going to find himself involved in any extracurriculars. Frey Abdullahi will be up there at the top as well. And everyone now getting in their outlaps. We might start to see the queue here at turn 16. So Koivuniemi going to start at what for sure will be his final lap of qualifying here. We'll see what he can do. Quite a few drivers in the last sector also ready to start their last one. Turn 3, going to come into turns 4 and 5 here. High-speed corners. And the big braking zone of Losail here. Turn 6. So using all of the curve possible. Nice use of track width. Hard to safely get much further than that to maximize the track. And here, the flat out 12, 13, and 14. Didn't even sound like Alexei Lipton on 14. Downshift there into 15. Come around here on 16. Quick on the power, well done. Koivuniemi does not improve, but consistent. Only half a tenth difference. P3 looking like a solid finish for him. Meanwhile, Logan Oren just completed a purple sector 2. A tenth faster than the lap you see on the board for him. Last year's champion, the American driver with the American team Haas. He'll come around. I don't know that he's got 3 tenths to catch Jensen Randall, but should solidly have a P2 start here. Does improve. More than 0.2 improvement. So well done from Logan Oren, dialed in. That'll do it for qualifying. So Jensen Randall, the pole. Logan Oren, a strong P2. Alexei Koivuniemi continuing the strong performances in Freya Balai. Pretty far up the grid, hopefully can avoid a lot of danger being that far up. Vincenzo Torre there. You see the qualifying band. Luke Smith in the Aston Martin, no time set. And Nick Van Gelder will be in the race, also serving a qualifying ban. So Jensen Randall, the ringer has been brought back. Simone Mara, quite a few wins in a row, 5 in a row, 6 podiums in a row. Only Jensen Randall could stop him last week. This week, Simone Mara, the Italian, not going to be racing. So I would say Jensen Randall still the favorite. But the other podium spots up for grabs. Round 1, it was Logan Orend and Alexei Koivuniemi joining him. Last week, Sandra Dulis on the podium. So a good variety of finishes at the top of the grid. At the top of the grid today. Mostly a who's who of who's the top of the racer standings. Driver standings, excuse me. Simone Mara with 44 total points. Koivuniemi 27. Jensen Randall 26. Dulis 23. Logan Oren 20. And we'll get the formation lap here. Okay, so there you see it is a tough race on the tires. P1 through P5. The drivers who were all fighting over the last 2 rounds for a podium spot on the hard compound. They'll look to extend as long as they can. Meanwhile, Jesper Limpinen, P8 there on the softs along with Senna Herveyard. They're going to be on a shorter stint looking to make as many overtakes as possible. A good part of the field on the medium compound here. Safety cars. Always on the table here, it seems, in these races. So if you're Jensen Randall, Logan Oren, Koivuniemi, Balai, or Jägerström, a significant opportunity, perhaps, to switch to the softs at one point. 3 combined virtual safety cars and safety cars in the first race. And a few opportunities last week in Australia. So extend those hard compounds as long as you can. Hope perhaps that you will have the opportunity to pit at the right time. And Logan Oren, you see the weaving. I don't think no one has S's quite as wide as Logan Oren. Well, in the grid forms, we're at Qatar. It is round 3 of SRL. Qatar notable Grand Prix in other leagues like WOR. Some incidents there around turns 1, 2, and 3. But here we are. The lights are on. Jensen Randall, Logan Oren in the front of the row. And it's lights out. It is full sail, low sail. Here we go. Jensen Randall, good start. Logan Oren, fantastic start already. Threatening. And a little bit of spikes there, perhaps from Logan Oren. Jensen Randall, as he did last week, a clean getaway. And the Red Bull driver already increasing that interval. We saw the same thing from him last week, able to really just increase the gap right away. Coming around, grid still pretty tight back there. Meanwhile, it looks like Senna Hervire in the back. Perhaps a little incident. Finds himself 4 seconds behind Vincenzo Torre. No VSC, no yellow flags. We continue racing. All right. That's a full tank of fuel, cold tires. These turns going to be much different than they were in qualifying trim. These drivers, no issues with them so far. Meanwhile, Jensen Randall coming around turn 16. Everyone's still pretty tightly compact. Nick Van Gelder going to pit lane, perhaps some damage, along with Senna Hervire. Clearly an incident back there. And now some more strange jumps on the interval table, but Jensen here nearly a second ahead of Logan Orend. Meanwhile, Freya Belay just waiting behind Logan Orend. And I think this is what we've seen the drivers do the last few weeks. Content to just dial it in these first few laps. Nothing too crazy. Stay out of trouble. Keep your nose clean. Once everything's warmed up, then you can just start waiting and waiting. Use that DRS. Not too many mistakes made here at the top of the grid, but they'll be ready if there are any. And Ivan Brito looking very solid on Qatar here. He's just behind Sandro Dulis. See there, 2/10. Certainly looked like he's had some looks here going into some turns. And the Mercedes on the diffuser of the Ferrari. And with some pit stops early, the game insisting that perhaps there's some new pit strategies available. We'll go back to the top here. It's Alexei Koivuniemi. A nice DRS train, although Jensen Randall has gone 1.2 ahead of Logan Orend. And again, we saw this last week. Jensen Randall seemed to be pushing early on, wanting to keep the driver behind him out of DRS. Ivan Brito continues to stay right on the tail. Sandro Dulis and now Tim Bentinck also able to be the beneficiary of these two battling it out here early on. Good news for Tim Bentinck on the hard compound. He can continue this stint with the hard tires, get that DRS from these two drivers, and maybe even overtakes one of them on the softer compound. He'll be well equipped for later in the race. Ivan Brito starting to fall a little bit behind now. And on the AlphaTauri, Jesper Limpinen on the soft compound, going to be looking to make the pass on Luke Smith, the reserve driver. Gets it there on the straight. Well done. So a good start for the soft stint. Back to the top. Jensen Randall is cruising here in the Red Bull. That gap only continuing to increase. And a familiar sight for viewers of F1, the Red Bull in front, with that gap only increasing. Meanwhile, Logan Orend's also increased the gap to the driver behind him. It's Freya Belay. So the gap's increasing here at the front, uncharacteristic compared to the first 2 rounds. As Logan Oren looking a bit like the Flash there, jumping around. No warnings for track limits from the game, so we'll assume that's just a connection issue more than anything. And of course the stewards, any track limits penalties, they are reviewable by the stewards, just as we saw last week. Freya Belay getting the pass on the straight meanwhile. So a good start of the race from Belay. Again, hard luck last week. Big incident in Australia at turn 3, just as in the previous 2 years with SRL. He'll be looking to score some good points, move his way up in the driver's standings. The Ethiopian driver, the first driver representing Africa in SRL. Logan Oren staying right behind him. Elsewhere. What an onboard. Tim Bentinck here. You're looking at the rear wing of Ivan Brito, the Portuguese driver, and just ahead of him, the Greek driver, Sandro Dulis. What a shot that was. Dion Stahl just behind them. Dion Stahl, I believe, saying before the race, he's feeling like something about this track. It speaks to him. Comparatively doing better on this one, he feels, than Australia and Bahrain before it. Tim Bentinck been threatening Brito for the last few laps. May not want to push it too much. Tire conservation a big part of this race here in Qatar, and he is on the hard compound, so eventually the mediums will fall off and he'll have the advantage. We go back up to the top. Alexei Koivuniemi starting to close the gap on Freya Belay. Freya Belay closing the gap on Logan Oren. That gap has significantly decreased since we last checked in. Meanwhile, Jenson Randall nearly 3 seconds up on Logan Oren now. You see the fuzzy blur of a Red Bull in that shot earlier, going around turn 9. Freya Belay here into 12, 13, and 14. Slight lift there on 13. Bit more one on 14. Logan Oren starting to pull away. And Koivuniemi's starting to close the gap too. And a tidy sector 3 from Logan Oren as he increases that gap again to about 1 second. The grid fairly tightly packed compared to the last few sessions. Seems like everyone just kind of waiting, watching, making sure that they're managing their race, can't manage anyone else's. And the familiar sight here, Haas, McLaren, Aston Martin. We're already about a quarter of the way through the race. No major incidents so far. Something in lap 1 involving Nick Van Gelder and Senna Hervire. But otherwise, a master class from Jenson Randall, who we haven't even checked in with much. A tightly compact grid here with Freya Belay and Alexei Koivuniemi, and then further down. Meanwhile, Tim Bentinck and Luke Smith, it seemed like, just fell in the standings a little bit. Jesper Limpinen and Dion Stahl getting by them. Unsure what happened. We'll check to see if there's any notable damage. Wings look okay on Luke Smith. Tim Ventink staying out. Again, you see a lot of DRS available for a good number of the drivers. Jamie Jägerstrom a bit behind Alexei Koivuniemi, Sandro Dulis behind him, but Sandro only just kind of getting through that battle in the midfield. And the hard compound runners have to be happy with the way the race is going so far. All running together. Softer compounds have not caught up to them, although Sandro Dulis starting to close that gap. Check in with Jensen Randall. He is leading the race after all, but you see no other cars visible on screen. Drivers like Logan Oren, Freya Balai, and Alexei Koivuniemi probably going to be hoping for a safety car, something happening behind them at some point. Because right now, Jensen Randall seems to be just having a leisurely drive out there. You see there, it's just all sorts of real estate for him on screen. You know, Sandro Dulis making the pass on Ivan Brito, so these two battling back and forth. The gap to Jamie Jägerstrom increasing for these two. So I'm sure Jägerstrom pleased to see that he's pulling farther ahead of those on the medium compound. See Jesper just behind them as well on the soft compounds. He's made some good moves, good position changes. We'll see if we can get some position changes. Luke Smith, the beneficiary, 4 so far. Otherwise, more or less status quo here. Looks like we've got a car stopped in Sector 1. Is that Nick Van Gelder? I believe it was. Not sure what happened, but he's able to keep the car moving. So that was out of turn 5, which in quali trim is a slight lift. Maybe just lost the back end. You know, this battle for P6 continues. Sandro Dulis, Ivan Brito, Limpinen, Luke Smith now coming in, and Dion Stahl. Really from P6 to P11, Tim Ventink. You see them there at the end of this train. So quite a lot going on here. Especially now as we get into turn 10. I don't think anyone would be brave enough at this point. But certainly any mistakes at this part of the grid, someone's going to be able to take advantage. Coming around there. Sandro Dulis, of course, the podium last week. Scoring points well, and it's Jesper in the first pit stop of the round on the soft compounds. He's going to pit at lap 11, and we'll see how that affects other drivers and their strategies. Be curious to see which tire compound he's going to go to. Tim Ventink also pitting. He was on the hard compounds, going to the mediums. Jesper going to the hard. So 2 different strategies for 2 drivers who have been next to each other for most of the race. We'll see where Jesper and Tim come out and how it relates to when other drivers make their first pit stops. Tim Ventink Interesting strategy. Hard compound for 11, and then dip in for medium. So that'll be a driver to watch as we continue. Oh, Ivan Brito, he's just been breathing down Sandro Dulis's neck all race. And now Luke Smith has caught his way up to the two of them as well. Dion Stahl just out of DRS range from Luke Smith, but this has been where the real battle has been in the race. As Jensen Randall continues to just kind of run away with it there, starting his 12th lap. It looked like Brito there was having a look here on the straight. You see Dulis, the ERS light flashing. He's not had the beneficiary, or the benefit of DRS really at any point during this race. As Jamie Egerstrom's gap has been only increasing. So Dulis has been towing quite a few drivers behind him. I'm sure he's hoping Dion Stahl could be the driver right behind him so they could work together. The two longtime teammates in the Ferrari. And it just seems like Dulis is really working harder than anyone else out there right now to keep these drivers behind him. On board, Portuguese driver, Brito. Nice consistent race. Go in here, turn 15, downshift into 5. Good indicator, he's maybe starting to lose a little bit of grip there on the medium compounds. Hard to say when we can expect medium compound drivers to pit, although Dion Stahl just did on the medium. And now Brito, with the DRS, with overtake engaged, going to get the pass on. So with Dion Stahl pitting, you wonder if that means Sandro Dulis will pit just after. Seems both on the same strategy. Of course, you can double stack in this game. They're teammates. So very possible Dulis will then go into the pits after this. Dion Stahl coming out on the hard compound. Jesper, who pitted before him, a couple seconds ahead of Dion Stahl. Meanwhile, Tim Ventink, the gap to Dion quite significant. So I wonder if maybe Ventink had a little incident, was involved in something to lose a bit of time there. Sandro Dulis, meanwhile, losing a couple positions, also to Luke Smith. So certainly feels like now would be the time to pit for him. And my guess is it's going to be medium and hard for a lot of the drivers on the medium compound. Dulis does come in. Meanwhile, his teammate Dion Stahl, who was about a second behind Dulis, maybe 2 seconds. Will this get the Ferraris right next to each other so they can work together to move forward? Dulis making his way out of the pits. Might be Jesper Limpinen, who's sandwiched between the Ferraris. Looks like he's going to get out in front of Dulis. And there he is. So we've seen these two work together before during a race and qualifying. I'm sure Dulis would love the opportunity to maybe get a little ERS back, as we saw him flashing. Check in with Jensen Randall. Probably just listening to a podcast, eating some Cheetos. Nothing too taxing for him today. Just consistent lap after lap. We'll see what he's running now, lap 14. Going to be a 1:26. Meanwhile, it's Koivuniemi, the first of the hard runners to pit. So we'll see where that puts him compared to this driver, Jamie Egerstrom. Meanwhile, Luke Smith getting the pass. And those are excuse me. Oh, sorry, that is not Luke Smith. That is I think the AlphaTauri of Senna Hervire. So we'll see where Jamie Egerstrom can come out in relation to Alexei Koivuniemi if Jamie Egerstrom is going to pit this lap. But the interval's increasing there at the top of the grid. Now, with some pit stops having been made, a little bit more room between each driver out there. So this is kind of a crucial part of the race where it's going to be the pit strategy coming into play more than anything else. You see there, P1 through P6 yet to stop. Robin Hertstadhagen in P13 yet to stop. Logan Oren, Freya Balai, and now Jamie Egerstrom will stop though. And we'll check with Koivuniemi, who just had a purple sector 2. So perhaps a good time to stop for Koivuniemi here. We'll see where he comes out relative to those other drivers. Should think he'll be in front of Egerstrom. But it looks like Balai and Oren, you see they're coming out in front of him. So Balai and Oren able to maintain their position here. So just Jensen Randall among the front runners yet to pit. Luke Smith in P2. Vincenzo Torre with the qualifying ban currently in P3. Koivuniemi continuing to light up the mini-map in purple. And supposed track limits violation there for Logan Oren. Of course, the stewards can review this as last week. We had quite a few penalties removed after review. Sander Dulis here. Dion Saul in front of him now. Dulis going to have the benefit of DRS for one of the first times this race, with his teammate in front. Going to be able to charge a little bit of battery, but it's Ivan Brito yet again right behind Dulis. This has really been the story of the race so far, these two. And not a surprise based on the last few sectors we've seen. Koivuniemi, the 124.1, fastest lap of the race so far. Meanwhile, Jensen Randall did pit. Out in front of Logan Oren and Freya Balai. The gap a little bit lower than it had been. So good pit strategy from Logan Oren and Freya Balai. Making up a little time with the pit strategy to Jensen Randall. Of course, Jensen, with the latest pit stop, his tire is going to be good for him the rest of this race, barring any safety cars. Meanwhile, Luke Smith currently in P1 yet to pit. We'll see if he ducks in there at the end of this lap. And not sure what happened to Luke Smith. You see him go off track. Did he have a puncture, I wonder? Ah, yes, look at that. The front left, extending the mediums just slightly too far. So that is the danger of Qatar. Those outside tires having to travel so much farther. It is a circuit full of right-handers. And Luke Smith, unfortunately, finding out the hard way. Doesn't take too much to be too far. Back to business, meanwhile, for Jensen Randall. The gap 1.7, 1.8. So much time gained out of turn 6. 1.9, 2 seconds now over Logan Oren, last year's champion. So it's not as if Jensen Randall is racing me. He's racing a high caliber driver out there. Purple sector 2 for Jensen. So the gauntlet throwdown by Koivuniemi with the fastest lap. I want to say it was a 124.1. Jensen appears to be on fresher tires. And it's going to be a lighter fuel tank. Fully expecting this one to be the new purple lap of the race. There it is, 123.0. My goodness. And he gained about a second just on the last half of that lap over Logan Oren. What a lap there. Well, Jamie Jägerstrom to pass on the straight over Jesper. Jamie Jägerstrom looking good for another top 5 finish. Go back a little bit. Dulis and Dion Stahl changing positions. Ivan Brito and the Mercedes still right behind them. And Ivan Brito, you wonder if he's just going to be following these two for the rest of the race. 2 Ferraris in front of him. Not going to be easy to make the overtake now. Meanwhile, Dion Stahl a little wide there. Dion Stahl, I wonder if going a little wide, maybe losing a little momentum, maybe picked up some marbles, some reduction in grip, reduction in surface area on the tire. And again, going slightly wide there is Dion Stahl. Ivan Brito not yet able to capitalize. We'll have DRS coming around turn 16 on the straight. We'll see if he can get the job done. Right on the diffuser. Getting as much slipstream as possible. And the Ferraris working together, not giving him any room for the overtake. I don't think there's 2 teammates who work better together than Dion Stahl and Sandro Dulis. And Ivan Brito's so patient. It's going to be a frustrating thing to be stuck behind 2 teammates, as he has been for a good chunk of this race now as we enter lap 20. Meanwhile, it's at Tim Ventink in sector 2. The Alpine had slowed down on the mini-map. No obvious damage there to the wing. Tires look okay there. No safety car. Sandro Dulis a little wide there. It's 2 laps in a row now. Ferraris have gone a bit wide on turn 15. As I mentioned earlier during qualifying, you can kind of be aggressive on that one. As the car kind of gets dialed in, the fuel tank gets emptied, your tires are nice and warmed up. Sometimes just a little engine braking enough to get you around there, but easy to go wide. The 2 Ferraris continue to keep the Mercedes of Ivan Brito at bay as he goes wide there, coming around turn 5. Now you wonder, is the frustration building? He's had that opportunities on the straight across the starting line. But you saw Dion Stahl and Sandro Dulis position themselves perfectly to keep him at bay. Meanwhile, again, it's the Alpine of Tim Ventink near turns 5 and 6. So not sure what's happening. That's 2 laps now. It seems like a little bit of a spin. And unfortunate couple laps here from Tim Ventink. Sandro Dulis starting to find a little more room in front of him. We'll see what Brito can do on this straight this time. You see the light flashing for both him and Dion Stahl. Dion Stahl taking that inside line. Great work from the Ferraris. Brito, you hope Vincenzo Torre maybe can catch up to your group and at least make it a 2-on-2 here. The Ferraris against the Mercedes. We'll check in with Jenson Randall. Not a lot to say this race. No Simone Mara in the race. So unlike last week where it was Randall, Mara, Oren, Koivuniemi, Jägerström, almost always within a second of each other around Australia. Jenson Randall here. Just a regular day at the office, a regular Saturday morning. No concerns whatsoever. He's now 4 seconds ahead of Logan Oren as there's 7 laps remaining. Meanwhile, Dion Stahl and Sandro Dulis have switched positions, and Vincenzo Torre, the other Mercedes, now close to DRS range. So we might have quite an interesting battle here as the race enters its final quarter. Consistent race from everybody. I mean, not a lot of position changes. You see here Vincenzo Torre with the qualifying ban has come back well. Luke Smith up 3 positions, but a lot of that is, you know, some of the drivers, Tim Ventink, Senna Herbeyer, Robin Hertzschladhagen, had to make some unscheduled pit stops. Meanwhile, Dion Stahl starting to pull away a little bit more. But the beneficiary of Sandro Dulis there running defense. Ivan Brito, his teammate, going to be with him shortly, but as I mentioned earlier, I just don't think there's 2 teammates who work better together than Dulis and Stahl. Teammates for quite a few years now. And another straight. Just seems like Brito's always flashing, has always used most of that battery. The Ferrari's going to switch. Let Dion Stahl recuperate some of his own ERS. And it's just textbook stuff here from the Ferrari. Looking like a nice P7, P8 finish here for the 2 of them. But still some laps to go, and we've still seen a few spinouts, so there's always opportunity for a safety car or VSC that could really eliminate a lot of these gaps. Meanwhile, Jesper Limpinen, the Finnish driver in the AlphaTauri, 13th in the standings last year among drivers. Currently 14th this season with only 1 point. Looks to be a good improvement on the 1 point over 2 races for him as he starts to close in on Jamie Jägerström. We'll check the tires. The hard compound for Jesper, pretty well aged at this point as they just start their 14th go around the circuit. But with only 5 laps left, might be far enough ahead of Sandro Dulis, there's no threat there. And I think unless Jamie Jägerström's mediums start to fall off pretty significantly, looks like Jesper Limpinen, a P6 finish for him. Meanwhile, Luke Smith has joined. Or no, excuse me, that's a McLaren. So that must be Robin Hertzstadhagen now, finding himself involved in this four-driver battle here. Looks like he gave a little space. Smart move. And apologies to Luke Smith. I've confused a lot of drivers for him. Luke Smith actually, you see there, about 7 seconds behind the Mercedes of Ivan Brito. Vincenzo Torre moving up the position ahead of Ivan Brito. So perhaps now the Mercedes working together. Brito, the RS did seem to be low for most of this battle. So going to be able to recover some here. Dulis and Dion Stahl at one point switched yet again. I missed that one. Oh, but just enough of a gap. And is it going to be a double overtake here for Vincenzo Torre? He's going to have the outside line here coming around turn 2. And maybe a little bit of contact. Oh, maybe a bit more. And Ivan Brito going into the gravel. And now we've got a sandwich here with just 3.5 laps left. So it's now Sandro Dulis, Vincenzo Torre, Dion Stahl, and Ivan Brito. So Vincenzo Torre really making up time here. For so much of the mid and latter part of this race, it had been Dulis, Stahl, and Brito, and Torre was a few seconds behind. But now finding himself just 3/10 behind Sandro Dulis. And Dulis no longer going to have his teammate to help him, as Dion Stahl and Brito fall now 2 seconds behind, battling each other. So Dulis back to defending. We'll see if he maybe plans for some DRS in the last couple laps. We'll check the tires. We haven't seen too much of Vincenzo Torre with the qualifying ban. He's got fresher tires. They are medium though, and they're about 10 laps old. But it certainly seems like this is where the action's going to be as we get into the last couple laps here. Of course, we'll go to the final lap of the race leader when that time comes. But most of the action has been back here at P7. Sandro. We'll go on board with him. Feels like a white knuckle race for him. All 28 laps. Seems he's constantly had someone right behind him breathing down the diffuser. But he's done well. No mistakes from Sandro Dulis, despite being under quite a bit of pressure. So he'll enter lap 28. Vincenzo Torre running out of time to have at least one Mercedes driver make it past the Ferrari, the lead Ferrari. A nice masterclass in defense here from Sandro Dulis. Meanwhile, Dion Stahl and Ivan Brito have really fallen behind these two up to contact. The overtake underway there for Vincenzo Torre at turn 6. Meanwhile, we will go to the race leader, Jensen Randall, as he's about to start the final lap here of the Qatar Grand Prix. SRL, round 3, season 9, returning champion Jensen Randall. He's made it look easy. He's had the lead from the start, started on pole, got away well, had about a second gap by the time he hit lap 2. No Simone Mara, so now there's a new streak in town, and it appears it's going to be Jensen Randall's. There won't be any doubt about it, no penalties to have to review. No one's going to cross the line in front of him or have any sort of say that it should have been them. It has been all Jensen Randall all day. You see no one else on screen. Truly, this is a Red Bull performance from him. He comes around turn 14. He could turn the pit limiter on at this point, and I think should be just fine. But Jensen Randall came in. He dethroned Simone Mara last week. This week, no Simone Mara. And no strong challenge. You see the celebration as he goes in near the pit. Jensen Randall. What a race. Logan Orn going to finish in a strong P2. Freya Balai, welcome back to the podium. Nice to see him have a clean race. Nothing to be involved in for Freya. And Koivuniemi continuing the strong finishes with a P4 finish, and Jamie Jägerström, the young driver, also building off of a good week last week. He will finish P5. Sandro Dulis there you see coming around turn 16. He was able to hold off in Shinzo Torre. Ivan Brito in P8. Dion Stahl unfortunately had to retire, you see there, into the wall after turn 16. And for Dion Stahl, it just feels like every race, for 95% of it, you say, what a great race, great strategy, and then just a bit of bad luck. So Jensen Randall, the winner again. Logan Ornd, another strong finish in P2, and Freya Balai, P3. That's going to put Jensen Randall at 52 points. I believe another fastest lap for Jensen. Sandro Dulis with the P6 win. He's going to fall just behind Logan Ornd in the driver's standings. Logan with quite a few points there that might catapult him to a P3 position in the driver's standings. Forgive me, it's 7 a.m. where I am. Math's not my strong suit. But it's Jensen Randall, it's Logan Ornd, and it's Freya Balai, your podium today. A clean race for the drivers compared to last week. No safety cars, no VSCs. All about pit strategy, tire management. Any penalties you see on screen, of course, our drivers and stewards will look at. And here in LaSalle, it is Jensen Randall returning to form. Get used to seeing this today. A Red Bull celebration. And for Americans like me, we'll savor seeing a Haas there on the podium. Fastest lap by quite a bit for Jensen. You see the only other 123 in the top 10. That's Luke Smith in the Aston Martin, the reserve driver from Australia. Tim Ventink also the 123. But far and away the fastest today was Jensen Randall. That'll do it for round 3 of SRL at Qatar. My name is Bryan Kessler. We'll see you in about a month for round 4. It's going to be Circuit of the Americas, my home race. Enjoy the sprint today, enjoy the race tomorrow, and we'll see you in a month.